What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some good versus bad examples of route running. So what we're going to do is we're going to show a bad example of a route, then we're going to compare and contrast it to a good example of that exact same route versus that exact same coverage, defense, whatever it might be. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you would like a daily training schedule that you can follow, Monday you're doing this, Tuesday you're doing that, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate 8-week wide receiver on-field workout plan. It's 8 weeks of daily on-field route running, press releases, catching exercises with video examples of each exercise, and we break down the exact sets and reps you should do. So check out that very first link in the description below if you'd like some more information on that, fellas. Let's get started with this video. So this first example here is how you should run a fade versus a DB who is in catch technique and uses kind of a inch back or a motor technique. So what that means, so catch technique, let's start with that. Catch technique is where a DB is not necessarily like, it's a form of man coverage. I would consider it a form of press man coverage, but this DB has got some space between the two of us. There's probably about maybe 2 to 3 yards of space in between us. Now you might wonder, like, why would a DB ever do that? He does that so this wide receiver has to pick a side to release to. Like, let's say, for example, he's running a post route. Say it's not a fade route. Say it's a post route. What he's hoping is that this wide receiver comes off the ball, and because there's this gap, he just tries to run, and this DB can cut off the angle, make contact, get hands, and squeeze him to the inside. Or for example, if he has to run a fade, he tries to just run around, he gets hands and squeezes him to the sideline. Now again, this is a bad example and that's kind of what happens, but this wide receiver necessarily doesn't play it bad at first. But there are a couple things that DBs are taught in catch technique that we need to learn as a receiver to make myself better off the ball. So let's play at full speed. So to the untrained eye, people might say, okay, if it's catch technique, what we got to do, got to close the space. I need to close this distance, try to AKA step on this DB's toes, maybe give him a move inside. Then because I close the distance, it makes it easier for me to stack, to get skinny, right? Which is essentially just running right by him. So let's play at full speed and watch what happens. So he does that. That this DB does a great job of maintaining the space of the catch technique. And you see what happens. He reroutes him all the way to that sideline. That is not enough room for the quarterback to fade us. And he's getting hand contact on him, disrupting timing of the play. Two most important things for a wide receiver is spacing and timing. Because if you give that to a quarterback, if you're on time with your route and you give him space, quarterbacks are very, very talented people, fellas. They can put the ball where they want it. And if we can give them that, more chance for me to get separation. Now, as soon as he comes off the ball, what does he try to do? He tries to attack him. He tries to close the space with him and give him a move inside like we said. But this DB, whenever we see catch technique, guys, we got to understand that sometimes DBs, what they will do is they will kind of inch back and maintain that space between him and the DB, right? They will, like, as soon as the ball is snapped, they'll start to, like you see, start to inch back, keep the space between the two of us, because eventually this wide receiver has to commit to a release. Now, if we see a DB starting to do that, aka a DB who is patient, what should we do as a receiver? We need to continue to close the space with the DB. We need to close the space even faster, because so many times wide receivers get caught up in press releases and they see this type of look, they pick a press release, and then that's it. That's the release that they're going to do. So he was thinking that he's going to do, like, let's say I'm not going to say I know what he's thinking because I don't, but let's say, for example, he was thinking, okay, I'm going to do a 4-step release. I'm going to give a little 2 quicks and then give like a crossover fake, right? But as soon as you come off the ball and you do those 2 quicks, this DB starts to inch back and he maintains space. Then you panic, and then it's like, oh shit, then you just take off and run. That's essentially what happens here. What we would want to do is we'd want to come up with, like, I'm doing my release, but I see this DB starts to inch back. Okay, I changed the release. I got to react. So important that wide receivers learn how to react with their releases, because releases are not so much about having a plan. Yes, you need to have a plan, but you also need to be able to react in case the DB does something that he's supposed to do. So we see this. He inches back. He keeps his space. He's able to get hands, forces us all the way to the sideline. You might think, oh, the wide receiver needs to close more space. Absolutely. But there's a little bit more to that, right? So now let's look at a good example of this. We got Amari Cooper. He's running a fade. He's got a DB also in this catch technique, 2 to 3 yards away. So Cooper, this is why I think whenever you get this type of look, I like doing some kind of release that's built upon like kind of a hesitation hop, or maybe like a skip. It doesn't necessarily need to be slow. It just, you need to be like patient, if that makes sense. So watch what Cooper does here. So he comes off the ball, he closes the space, but you see how that DB inches back. Cooper continues to close the space with him, and that is what we want as a wide receiver. So he comes off the ball. Watch what happens. He takes this little punch step with his back foot. He hesitates, right? Now, if that DB, let's say the DB just stays flat-footed, because that's an option, right? He comes off the ball. He hesitates. DB just stays there. we could just hit him with a quick crossover and go. We don't need to close any more space. But a smart wide receiver understands that a DB, when he's in catch technique, and this is something that you could pick up on through film study. You're matched up against a DB during the week that you're going to be playing on Friday, Saturday, whenever you're playing. You have film of him. You know that he plays catch technique a certain way. He inches back. He motors back. Maybe I know that. Maybe I'm prepared for that situation so I could react in the game. So you see how Cooper, he comes off the ball like we said. This DB starts to inch back a little bit more than the last DB. So what should we do? Let's quicken up the tempo of my release and let's go step on his toes. Let's close that distance because I guarantee you can run faster than a DB can inch back. He's not going to be able to inch back as fast as we can run. So you'll be able to close the space. You just have to be able to react on the fly. So he comes off the ball. He starts to inch back. Okay, cool. I'm going to go close the space. I'm going to quicken up the tempo. I'm going to give this crossover when I'm right on his toes because now I can make him miss. It's an easier stack. I could get skinny. And obviously, Cooper is just being Cooper and makes this dude fall. We don't got to do that every time, but this is essentially the idea, fellas. He wants to keep this space. He wants Cooper to come off the ball and give a move. He wants to inch back, so Cooper has to take the outside release, and he can cut us off and squeeze us. Don't let him do that. Let's always go. Let's always close space. If that's why, whenever you see that catch technique, I recommend going with a move that's a little bit more patient, just so we can react. Okay, so now, next example we're going to look at here. We got an inside shade press coverage DB, and this wide receiver is running a slant route. So when it comes down again, now, this guy's press, maybe it's a little bit of catch technique, whatever it is, but when you have to run a slant and you have inside shade press, this is where it comes down to having a plan as a wide receiver, right? Because like receivers, again, like I said, I would say it's probably 60% having a plan off the line, 40% reaction. And again, if you can combine those two together, you can have a plan and you can react. It makes it very, very tough for people to guard you off the line. But when I have inside shade press and we see this off the line, I keep talking about having a plan. How do you come up with a plan in the first place? So the plan is developed by the DB's leverage. Is the DB inside leverage like this example, or is he outside leverage? And how you could tell by a DB if he's inside or outside leverage, look at the middle of his feet. If the middle of his feet are lined up with my front foot, that means that his inside foot is slightly to the left or slightly to the inside of me. That means he has inside leverage. If the middle of his feet are lined up with my back foot, that means he has outside leverage and he's giving me the inside. So remember, he's lined up inside shade for a reason, to take away the inside. If I have to run a slant route, I'm probably not going to be able to just cut across his face, get skinny, and run the slant. If I try to go in front of him, he's going to keep his leverage. That's what DBs are taught. They will get hands, and they will force us to the inside and reroute and disrupt timing. Remember, my most important things are spacing and timing. So watch what this receiver does here. He just kind of gives like a quick move, but he never threatens the DB to the outside. And we're going to talk about the release that you would want to use in this situation. Remember, he's inside shape for a reason. If we just try to go to the inside, close space, and run at him, this is exactly what's going to happen. He's going to get hands and disrupt because he is taught, do not get beat inside. Because when a DB's inside leverage, he doesn't have safety help to the inside. His help is the outside. He wants us to run to the outside towards the sideline so he can cut down the field space. If he doesn't have help here, he's not going to give it up that easy. At least a disciplined DB won't. So that's the reason why he gets hands. That's the reason why he gets rerouted, and that's why this DB is all over this play. So now, let's talk about the next example here. We got a similar look, maybe a little bit further off, right? But he's still inside shade, and remember, we could tell by looking at the inside part of his foot. Now, again, what should we do in this situation? If that DB's sitting inside shade right at the depth of the break point, which is 3 steps, it's a 3-step slant. If he's sitting right at the depth of the break point inside shade and I have to run an inside breaking route, what should we do? We should do something called the diamond release. You guys have all probably seen like a baseball diamond before, right? Baseball diamond. They call this a diamond release because like from home plate to first base, that like 45-degree angle, if you will, is kind of what you want to do with your release. That's why they call it this. Or it's shaped like a diamond itself, like the jewelry, right? So when we come off the ball, we want to attack his outside shoulder and outside hip with speed, good body language. By that, I mean your hips and your shoulders are facing to the outside and long strides. Make him think that we're running a fade. Our goal should be to get him to open up his hips because he's, again, it's still man-to-man coverage. So he doesn't want to get beat inside, obviously, but still man-to-man. Where does he not want to get beat deep as well? Deep. He does not want to get taken. He does not want to let the defense get the top taken off him with a fade ball. So if I can sell that as a wide receiver, if I can come off the ball with some explosion, you see how he does his little punch step with his back foot? That's to create explosion. He accelerates 1, 2, 3, puts the brakes on, hips, shoulders, speed. Everything about this says he's running to the outside. That DB has to commit. Maybe he doesn't open up fully to where he's facing downfield. Maybe he does. But maybe we get him to move off the platform, and now I could slip under on my slant. I keep spacing. He didn't get hands on and jam me and disrupt timing on the play. And he didn't force me to the inside. This is exactly how you want to run that slant versus inside shade press. So you see the difference between the first example and the second example. We can't just run into a guy's leverage. We have to set him up with my release. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like an 8-week wide receiver on-field workout schedule, everything wide receivers should be doing on the field for route running, press releases, hands, the works, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to get you on that. I'll see you guys next time.